Again, my name is Matthew Gessler. I'm the Director of User Experience here at Radiant Digital. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of the day to be with us for this webinar on how to win your tech demo using user experience. It seems like we got a really full house here today, which is absolutely wonderful. I'll try to get through these slides at a good pace to make sure that we have enough time at the end for your questions, because I'm sure you'll have a lot of them. With that, let's jump right in, and I will share my screen. Alrighty, so let's start off with the basics. What is a tech demo? Now, I'm sure if you're joining this call, you probably know what a tech demo is or may have been a part of one. But for those of you who've joined out of curiosity or may be viewing this recording later, let's just go through it at a very high level. So tech demos are part of the government contract selection process. Once the government puts out an RFP for, say, a piece of software that they want to develop, companies put together their proposals and submit them off to the government. So let's say a proposal goes out, about 20 companies answer it. The government then may down select, meaning we're going to pick the best of those proposals to come in and give a tech demo. A tech demo is usually 1 day, but some are as long as 5. Typically, there are about 4 to 6 companies participating, meaning if 10 companies have submitted proposals, let's say 4 get down selected, each one of those 4 will have their 1-day session with the government review panel. A tech demo is really based all around show me, don't tell me. Way back when government proposals used to be really essay writing contests, but now the government is in a mode of take me through how you approach a project, what your solution is, build it all within a day, or like I mentioned, sometimes 5 days. The sessions culminate with a presentation of what you did and how you did it, as well as a submission of all the things that you've created during that day. So let's move on to the next slide here. So these tech demos are really process aware. The government is looking for you, to showcase your agile methodology. And, the ones that I've been a part of, this is done by either literally having a physical board in the room where you have your features, stories, and tasks outlined, and you're moving them along your physical Kanban board, or you might be projecting, say, Jira or Trello onto the wall. You might also be highlighting your team's communications. I've been in tech demos where we actually broadcast on the wall our Slack channel to show how the team was interacting with one another. But at the end of the day, these tech demos are what I like to call success theater, right? Because you're given an assignment to complete in 1 day, and that's not, how the real world works. So what you're doing is putting on a performance to show how you can accomplish what the government is asking for in such a short period of time. So I'm sure this looks familiar to everyone on the call. This is, your typical, say, agile methodology, where you start with input to the business owner, you create your backlog, you do your sprint planning, you go through your daily stand-ups, in this case, more like hourly or hour-and-a-half stand-ups. In a typical 1-day tech demo, from my experience, we run through 4 sprints, so that will put them at an hour-and-a-half each. And you go through to your user acceptance testing, and then your production release. Now, similar to, the statement of what's the 3 most important things in real estate: location, location, location. In this sense, it's your process, process, process. So In most tech demos, especially with some of the companies that I've worked with in the past, their main focus really is around your technology solution, right? So they're looking at the architecture, the solution stack, right? As you can see from this diagram, if any of you have ever been in a tech demo, this probably looks really familiar to you, right? Maybe instead of React, you have Angular, but you're looking at open source, loosely coupled technologies, leveraged AWS services, microservices that are independent development, deployment, and scalability, reusability enabled throughout the reusability enabled through service discovery, and deployed to AWS Container Service. So continuing in terms of this technology solution, again, companies are really laser focused on your DevSecOps, the pipeline first and foremost. You worry about your Jenkins, your JHipster, your automated feature and performance testing, right? So, and more times than not, team strategy are to use automated rolling deployments where you commit your code, spin up a new container while existing one's still up, wait for a new one to be healthy, drain connections from the existing one. So again, I'm sure all of you on this call who've been involved in tech demos, the last 3 slides that I've showed you, they probably look super familiar, if not the exact same ones that you are using in your tech demos. And the reason I wanted to showcase that is, I'm not a technical guy, I'm a UX guy. But the reason I wanted to go through that is to kind of showcase that there's really little variance, right, in these technology solutions. Especially if your company is down selected and you're competing against 3, 4 other companies, right? There are only so many ways to deploy your tech solution, right? Especially since government rules limit the type of software solution you can use, right? They're definitely looking for specific asks, right, when proposals go out. So the image that I'm showing here is something I wanted to use to show my point, is that these are place kickers from the NFL, and they're point after touchdown kicks for the 2019 season. These are your top 10. Out of these 10, 9 of them had 100% completion rate. So think about it this way. If you're competing against the top companies and you're all deploying the very, very similar solutions, right? You should all have almost the exact same outcomes. And what this does is lead into, how do you stand out, right? How are you going to differentiate yourself from other companies during your tech? You can't hope for other teams to make a mistake, right? That's like almost playing to tie, not to win. And we all know that these days pricing isn't a major mover. The government is really concerned more about the quality of work, your process, your procedure, etc. So this leads us to user experience. User experience is an excellent way to differentiate yourself from these other companies. If you ensure a robust and thorough UX process and deliverables, it definitely gives you that differentiator in which the government puts a lot of value. If you look at proposals today, right, for most software, government's going to list down that they want a UX designer and a UX researcher. So they're putting a lot of emphasis on this field. In addition, the government literally wrote the book on usability. If you've never seen it, I encourage you all to go out to usability.gov. It's an excellent resource for all things usability. In addition, government has one of the most comprehensive design systems in the world. I've been doing UX for about 20 years. In that 20 years, I've created, implemented, and managed design system at Fortune 50, Fortune 10, and Fortune 5 companies. And I can honestly say that the government blows those away. So as you're entering in your tech demo, what you would want to do is outline your user-centered design process, right? So typically you're not going to have users available during your tech demo, but it doesn't mean you can't outline your process to show the review panel at the end of the day during your presentation, right? What you want to do is focus on and show the steps under normal that you would take under normal circumstances, right? Meaning maybe you start out with some field study, contextual inquiry, right? What are the questions that you would ask users? How would you break down different user types or groups? Do those questions change based on that user persona, right? Where would you normally put in your user reviews during your abbreviated process? What type of quantitative measures would you use, right? System usability scale, technology acceptance model, and you can even draw up those surveys. What I've personally done in some tech reviews, tech demos, is I've actually created tasks and user stories in our Jira board that go to these activities. And even though we're actually not completing them, you know, we kind of just show that they're there, move them through the process, right? Maybe I just create a list of user review questions and we call that user interview, boom, move it over to complete. Another important thing that you want to do in your tech demo is document your flows. So by documenting your user and process flows, this will help determine which pages you actually need to design during the demo. So this also shows reviewers how you tackle the challenge of the front end. So if we can break these things down into a simple process flow, identify the screens, this even helps your UI team in terms of the actual front end development. In addition, you can talk about user journeys. Typically what I do is bring a user journey template and maybe complete it with as much information as I have at the moment or that I can get from the product owner during the session. And this is great because you just keep building up artifacts to add to your submission at the end of the day. In addition, what you want to be doing is using that design system that I mentioned earlier. Like I said, the government has one of the best robust design systems I've ever seen. The great thing about it is that there are templates available for both Sketch and XD. These are design software. Any resource that you have going into your tech demo should have those templates ready and be able to produce your designs with them. What we typically do is have some of these templates already customized and ready to go going into a session because you can anticipate certain needs. You know, maybe 4 out of the 5 tech demos I've been in required a login page that had 2 states, initial state and error state. And if you have those items ready, it helps lower the amount of work you have to do that day. In addition, using these templates helps ensure you're compliant with the government standards, and most importantly, ensures 508 and WCAG compliance. And this is a big deal, right? Because the government's all about meeting the accessibility laws, inclusive in terms of its design. So if you can add that into the work that you're doing during your tech demo, this will give you a huge leg up on your competition. So getting to the actual presentation and submission. During your presentation at the end of the day, ensure you have slides to speak to all your UX work. I know it sounds obvious, but you want to make sure you're giving that full picture of the work that you've done. Walk the reviewers through the process and the artifacts produced. Now, this is really important because you can create very detailed wireframes, but let's say the UI team wasn't able to implement all of it throughout the day. You can still show what was the desired end state and submit those designs as PDFs or PNGs with your work at the end of the day. So this shows that what the overall vision was, right? Shows your process, shows your procedure, shows that you value UX the way the government does. So in conclusion, we know that the right tech solution is important, but most will get it right. You know, let's think about that list of NFL kickers that I showed. If you're good at what you do, you're gonna do it well, and you nail it, right? So 9 out of the top 10 had 100% rate. You have to assume all your competitors are gonna put their tech solution together properly. Look to follow the process and procedure the government looks for on actual projects to show you can approach it correctly. You know, it's unfortunate that typically you only have one day and you don't necessarily have real end users to work with, right? But it doesn't mean you can't highlight the things you would normally do. You won't have all the data and answers in your UX artifacts, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't highlight them and include them in your submission, right? Again, it's success theater. Highlight the process. Make sure that you walk through what you should be doing, even though you might not have all the answers. And lastly, UX is never an afterthought. It's a driver, right? If you're doing this correctly, you're helping to determine which screens your UI developers are actually going to create. You should be working with the testers on a project to ensure they're writing proper test cases around the design that's being proposed. So with that, everyone, I think I did manage to get this through this in about 20 minutes to leave some questions. So Josh, do we have any questions out there?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's open up the chat for questions now. If you'd like to ask a question, you can simply type your question into the chat. Good. Okay, here comes our first one. Why do you think UX is such a differentiator?
Well, that's a great question. So one of the things I highlighted earlier in the webinar is that, and most of these proposals, at least that I've been seeing lately, that the UX is, the government is specifically asking for UX personnel. They're looking for a UX researcher. They're looking for a UX designer. And they're definitely not looking for, say, junior folks. So that's one of the big signals, is that they're actually calling out I don't want to say siloed, but specific UX functions, not some unicorn who's going to be able to do research, design, front-end development. That shows that they realize the importance of it, right? And especially with the amount of time, energy, and resources that have gone into their design system, they want to make sure that they have the proper personnel to can utilize it correctly. So I think anything you can do to signal that you understand the importance and you have the acumen and experience to execute on it is a huge advantage to your team.
Okay, the next question here looks like a two-part question. How much of the UX work you outlined can be done before the demo? And can you come prepared with a package?
Oh yeah, that's an excellent question. So you obviously want to make sure that you have all your necessary templates ready when you go into the session. Meaning, like I think I mentioned earlier, if you say you want to outline a user journey, you should have a user journey template ready that you can plug in the information that's relevant to the challenge that you've been given that day. So I think a lot of this you can actually be prepared with. I think I also mentioned that 4 out of 5 times I've been in a tech demo, we had a login page, right? So come prepared with a login page that maybe you just have to tweak a little bit to meet the needs of that specific challenge. I would say things like user research, templates and artifacts, you can also have ready to go and maybe just have to tweak some of the names and questions, or user survey, right? Like I suggested using the system usability scale. You can have a system usability scale designed, laid out, and maybe you just have to replace, this system and this system. So I think a lot of it you can have ready to go. It might require some minor tweaks, but you can't be overly prepared.
Okay. There's a few more questions here. Let's go with this one. How can the US resource be effective throughout the entire demo?
Oh, that's a really, really good question, because I think a lot of people see UX as this kind of, we do the work at the beginning, we do some, page design, hand them off to UI, and they're kind of done for the day. Well, I think it's really important for that UX person also to be kind of a little bit of the quarterback in these situations, because you can help drive the process flow or page flow, then do work on the designs, then not just throw them over the fence to your UI developers, but work with them to ensure that they're implementing them in the correct way. I think I also mentioned about working with testers. So if you can get your initial designs over to, say, the testing team, they can start formulating test cases faster than if they didn't have designs. So it's not about, say, just, I'm going to create some wireframes and I'm going to sit back and watch for the rest of the day. But it's ensuring that you're shepherding that vision through all the way to the end.
Okay, let's do a couple more questions here. What work are they doing after their designs are done?
I think, my that might have come in at the same time as the last one, but that, kind of, it was answered with the last question. Again, it's not just about doing the wireframes. It's about maybe, like I said, working with the UI developers, working with the testing team, but also working, with your, Scrum Master, business owner, in order to get the end of day presentation right. That's one thing I did leave out in the last answer, in terms of getting the UX slides into your presentation, making sure they're tight, they're speaking to your UCD process, etc.
All right. Okay, great. Okay, thanks. I think that's about all the time that we have for questions today. You guys can check out our website at radiant.digital for a link to this recording and the slide deck to this presentation. Again, thank you. Thanks, Matt, for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. That was fun.
Okay.